bourgeois democracy is a bad thing, and therefore we must have revolution, and therefore we dictatorship of the proletariat, and then everything would be fine. No. I believe all democracy is a site of class struggle. The whole point about bourgeois democracy does not come labeled as bourgeois democracy. Democratic institutions have to be captured by the people. Therefore, if you like, bourgeois democracy has to be converted into a deeper democracy, into a deeper form of democracy through people's struggle. So I see democracy itself as a sign of class struggle. So this whole business about saying that, this whole set of institutions is no good, that parliament is no good. No, we have to capture the parliament in order to actually assert popular will on the parliament. Okay, so I see it quite differently. All right, now, yes, victims of economic theory. Well, I think the whole idea is that, we have to critically relate to all theory, including economic theory. I don't want you to believe a word of what I have been saying over the last one hour. Not at all. Please think about it. I may be saying something completely bogus and wrong. So my sole purpose is to invite you to think, and I'm presenting certain things on the basis of which you can think, you can reject everything I say. So there is no such thing as you become a victim of economic theory only if you allow yourself to become a victim of economic theory. You become a victim of economic theory only if you don't critically relate to it. Don't believe a word of anything that anyone says. Think for yourself. Okay. Now there was this other question. If government expenditure increases, capital flies out. If government taxes increases, why shouldn't capital fly out? Of course it will, which is why I'm saying that there have to be capital controls. Any alternative agenda must involve capital controls. An increase in government taxes, an increase in government expenditure financed by increased taxes is only possible if we get out of this neoliberal regime by imposing capital controls and of course by imposing appropriate trade controls. Similarly, there was coordinated policies, of course, are not possible. That was exactly my argument, which is why individual countries, small countries may have to get together to constitute a minimum unit, but individual countries, like India for instance, I don't see why they cannot de-link themselves from neoliberalism to prevent capital from dictating to us policies and saying that if you don't follow these, we fly out, by imposing capital controls and therefore acquiring autonomy on the policies we pursue, and therefore pursuing policies which in fact are in the interest of the people. And the people should demand this, and our job as the intelligentsia must be to make this clear. Now, there would be opposition to increase in taxes. Of course there will be opposition, which is why it is important that there should be a social mobilization of other groups that actually overcome this opposition. You see, let's say nationalization of banks, okay, or nationalization of let's say monopoly capitalist property. Suppose it takes place. Obviously they would oppose it. It can only occur if there are other social classes who are mobilized to insist upon it, to overcome their opposition. Now taxation is exactly like that. Capitalists are going to oppose taxes, but on the other hand, to overcome that opposition, therefore, we must have other mobilization of other classes. I should just say one thing here, that one of the remarkable things about India, and this you would not get if you look at any newspaper, any financial press and so on, is that the rich hardly pay any taxes. The bulk of the taxes in India are paid by the poor. And just see, you have no wealth tax, virtually none. Everybody earns about 2 crores or something like that. So there's no wealth tax. In every capitalist country there's a wealth tax. In fact, there's an ideology of capitalism that actually says that enterprise must be rewarded. Therefore, some capitalist who has set up an enterprise must be allowed to become wealthy. But on the other hand, it shouldn't be passed down, because if so, then you're not rewarding enterprise, then you're rewarding your grandfather's enterprise. So it is against the whole ideology of capitalism is that it promotes enterprise. Now, the point is that therefore, in most capitalist countries, there are wealth taxes, debts duties, so that that the next generation must be one in which people begin to show their own enterprise and not just live off their father's wealth. So capitalist countries have wealth taxes. In fact, Piketty came to my university and was absolutely taken aback by the fact that in India there are no wealth taxes. It is unthinkable, but there isn't. And do you hear a voice that is actually arguing that there should be wealth taxes? No. We take it for granted that the rich don't pay taxes or shouldn't pay taxes. There is no capital gains tax. In other words, there is a difference in income, which is after all some effort you have put in, whatever kind, and capital gains, which is just as we were discussing, made through bubbles and so on. There is no capital gains tax in India. No. Manmohan Singh government got rid of that, whatever there was. Okay, so you have no wealth tax, you have no capital gains tax, you have some income tax which the rich are supposed to pay, but that gives you a trivial amount. The bulk of the taxes in India, of course, are raised through indirect taxes. And the only study, people don't realize, suppose you have an indirect tax, let us say, on tires and tubes. Okay? I mean, automobile tires and tubes. You may think that the tax is being paid by the truck owners or the bus owners and so on. As a matter of fact, it gets passed on through higher transport costs,